everybody, TC Bradley, host of God Made Millionaire TV, the hottest show on daytime television. And I've been waiting all week for you, yes you, to stop on by and watch our show. And what a show we've got lined up for you today. I'd like to welcome back a special guest who has appeared on our show way back in season 1, and now he's here yet again for season 3, Mr. David Radlo. David is most known for disrupting the egg industry along with his partners by creating the healthy, humane, cage-free, free-range eggs and food. David is also a highly sought-after leadership expert and innovation and growth expert. He's a Fortune 500 international speaker and best-selling author of the book Principles of Cartel Disruption that beat out Paul Volcker and Senator Tim Scott on the day of David's book debut. So, without any further ado, let's crack open the God Made Millionaire Bank Vault and let's activate some God-given dreams. Hey, David, welcome back to our show for season 3 of our show. I know you were here in season 1, and you've been busy since season 1 appearance. You've written yet another book, Secret Stories of Leadership, Growth, and Innovation. I want to talk to you about this book that debuted on the bestseller list on Amazon when it debuted. But first, what I want to do is for our audience listening at home, I want to play just a clip from your season 1 appearance. How does somebody disrupt a multi-billion-dollar industry? Because that's what you've done in the egg industry.
You do it one day at a time, and you do it with a lot of great partners that work together with their talents. And you do this first by taking the category itself, and you want to take a look at your sustainability factors, social drivers, and health drivers, and humane drivers, and then all of a sudden you have in what's good, what's better, and what's best, and you come out with new packaging. Some may be plastic, some may shout out a little bit with a great brand, and then from there you are able to expand on that category. So when a consumer goes to the supermarket, they're going to spend 7 seconds, but they're going to spend 7 seconds right in that category. Through this innovation, we were able to disrupt the egg category, and we were able to grow it to a level to now it's a multi-billion-dollar separate category of itself.
All right, David. Here's what I want to know. Right from the jump, I see you have a foreword to your best-selling book by the Ben Carson Jr. Tell me a little bit about how you pulled that one off.
Oh, Ben Carson Jr. and I, we work together at Tufts University in support at the Derby Entrepreneurship Center for the benefit of students. And so we work together, and from there, we've developed a real good relationship. And so from there, I was able to sit down with him and his family and his partners, Harrison Perry and Choke and Marcus. And I'm really, really excited about the opportunity that they have in private equity, in which they're helping with underserved, investing in underserved communities, as well as minority businesses, and that the growth prospects in doing so is quite phenomenal. And they're disrupting the wealth gap, and they're reducing the wealth gap through investment. These are not handouts. This is actual investments in businesses and giving capital to businesses that are deserving of such in order to have future blockbuster growth.
David, for as long as I've been alive, which has not been that long, there's been talk about doing what you and Ben Carson Jr. are talking about doing in our minority communities. It's overdue. Wouldn't you agree that somebody that actually takes the action and institutes these programs, I believe it's long overdue, don't you?
Well, it's been long overdue. We have to decrease the minority wealth gap, and we have to do that in the right way, and that's through capitalism. The second reason is, frankly, it's an outstanding opportunity, and the prospects for growth are quite great. That's why I'm an investor in Fulcrum, and that's why I'm a board member.
Fantastic. What a history you have. I'm reading your book. I want to know what inspired you to write this book. You hit it out of the park with your first book, Principles of Cartel Disruption. That debuted on the bestseller list. I felt that you laid a foundation for us in your first book, but the second book is completely different than the first book. And so I'm kind of curious what your motivation was in writing and publishing this second book.
You know, you can always state principles. This is what you should do, and you should do it on value proposition. You should do it on pitch. You should do it on legal game. You should do it on people, process, strategy, sustainability, how to pick a board, and all that. It's a whole other thing to say, okay, we're 10 feet off the ground, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about how we did business with Fidel Castro, how we broke in, how we handled back-channel diplomacy, how we were able to change and become cage-free nation, how we're able to disrupt an egg industry and form with my partners and develop a multi-billion-dollar specialty egg business, and also how you actually really gave back, and what other things that you need to learn about a disruptive mindset versus a cartel and market leader mindset. And what is the last principles in terms of what are the cartel rules, so people can understand that when you do go into business, there are certain things you have to learn. And one of them is you have to understand the principles, the cartel leadership principles. So I'm really quite excited to write this book because it gives content in context.
Amazing. I was going through the book, and one of the things that struck me is the first 4 chapters of your book, of your new book, it goes into this relationship that you forged and developed with Fidel Castro.
That is correct. And it's really remarkable that we had an opportunity, and we had an opportunity to do business with Castro. And we came down in 2002 after a hurricane, when Castro said we won't accept aid from the U.S. government, but we will buy. So as it turned out, I was very fortunate to have relationships that were political in nature, going back to H.W. Bush, to also Andy Card at the time was Chief of Staff of the White House, Andrew Natsios, who was head of the Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance, and later became head of the development group over there in foreign aid. So with that as a backdrop, plus being head of the New England Brown Egg Council and knowing some senators and congressmen, we ended up getting the top seat to be able to sit down with them and talk about policy and about how, you know, we're enemies, but what can we do to get along, so to speak, and what can we do? And I'm a big believer in constructive engagement, because when you have an opportunity to have commerce, such as being able to do business in the egg and poultry world and also the feed world and develop $500 million worth of business, it also gives you an opportunity to talk about what can we do to perhaps bury the hatchet on some things that we have going on, and maybe we can improve and increase the trade so, you know, life is good. And frankly, at the end of the day, we're able to get some political prisoners freed. We were able to help.
Wow.
You know, real exciting stuff as well, some smaller stuff. I mean, we were able to support the Hemingway Preservation Foundation, which is the Finca Valle Foundation, Ernest Hemingway's books and records. And we were able to be the lead sponsor with that. We were able to help out with the State Department with their holiday display, which is the beacon light, shining light, were able to finance that so they could have a nice Christmas display. And it was really one thing at a time that we did this. So one thing leads to another. I also don't want to stop and not mention the amount of support we gave to both Catholic charities and also the Jewish group over in Cuba, which all spelled out in the book.
I want to talk about a part in this book when you talked about the first trip you made to Havana, a trade mission, and you're in Havana for the first time, and the other executives that were with you on this mission, they go out and enjoy the nightlife. And you wrote in your book that you went back to your hotel room and you read your Bible. And I read that, and I said, when you come on set, I've got to ask you, did that really happen? Did you really go back to your room? First time in Cuba, you would think you'd go out, you'd see the sights and enjoy the nightlife. You went back to your room and you read your Bible. Is that a true story, David?
It's an absolute true story. And to be fair, I guess, being the moderate that I was and being politically appropriate, that we had dinner with everybody, and then I had a drink out with the guys, and then I went back to my room. That
Why?
is correct.
Why did you do that?
Well, the Bible will keep you out of trouble, that's for sure.
You want to stay out of trouble.
I want to stay out of trouble.
Let's talk a little bit about what you said in your book as well, because you've mentioned some names. You mentioned some political names. And what I found interesting is that you said in your book that you are not a Democrat, you are not a Republican, you're a capitalist. You're a capitalist that loves God. Can you expound on that for me?
I believe that capitalism will help and create wealth. It is the best course. I'm not a communist. I'm a capitalist, and I believe in that. And also, I am an absolute believer in God. And those two things nowadays, may not be politically appropriate in some circles to say those things. But I will tell you, it is what I am a believer in. If there was a party that I'd have associated to, it wouldn't be the Socialist Party, it would be the Capitalist Party that believes in God.
Amen. Amen. Hey everybody, T.C. Bradley, host of God Made Millionaire TV, and I'm honored and privileged to host the hottest show on TV, where each and every Sunday we feature God's people, faith-based entrepreneurs and leaders activating their God-given dream right before your very eyes. I want to encourage you that if you're somebody that God has given a God-given dream, I invite you to come on our set and activate your God-given dreams. Book a call with our producers and walk in your destiny. I have heard for as long as I've been in business that your net worth is tied to your network. And what I found interesting is in that first meeting that you had in Cuba, one of the first things they wanted to know was who you knew, who was involved in your network. And all of a sudden, because of your network, you were able to be seated 2 seats away from Fidel Castro. You want to talk about that?
Well, that is correct. So to expand your network is very important. It was a great experience, and I never thought for the life of me that all that work, that during all those years, all those intern experiences, all those nights, all the things that we did in order to build the network with H.W. Bush, with Andy Card, with Andrew Natsios, with all the congressmen and senators in both New England and throughout the United States, that would be an asset someday, and it came in big.
If you're watching this at home and you think that you've got to force your way into those seats, you don't have to force your way into the seats. I believe you were appointed to be in that moment in time? That was a destiny moment for you, David, in that moment of time, and you were prepared for that moment as well, because you actually negotiated 2 trade deals in that meeting, did you not, sir?
Yes, that is correct. The first thing we negotiated on behalf of industry was that Cuba was going to buy eggs. And it was just a very interesting moment where Castro agreed, and we were having banter, and I just looked at him and I said, "Is there anything you'd like me to tell the Chief of Staff of the White House?" And he came back and said, "We're buying eggs." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, that's one deal done." Okay, and I said, "Fair enough," and then I shut up. And then they started to talk about his great technology in the Cuban biotechnology industry, and they presented one product. And I just happened to be in the ag biotech business too. And I said, "Well, is there a possibility that we can negotiate and be able to take that product and run it through the process back in the United States?" And he says, "You got a deal." And I was shocked. But really, who's going to go against the word of the chief dictator and president of the island? No one.
Right, right. And then you smoked a cigar.
Smoked a cigar. It was about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and after negotiating all night, back and forth, it was time to smoke a cigar.
And it was interesting to me is that I didn't know this about Fidel Castro, is that he actually, I think you wrote, he went to Columbia University, wanted to go to Harvard University, but he went to Columbia University.
We presented him the proclamation calling for the end of the embargo from the state of Maine, and it was voted on. And he looked at me and said, in English, the only time he spoke to me in English was, "David, I am a very happy man. I wanted to go to Harvard Law School. They wouldn't give me a scholarship. So I went to Columbia instead. And we had a great time on the Upper West Side. I lived on the 3rd floor." And he shared with me the address. And then he said, but later on I got a call from Che Guevara. And he wanted me to come back and establish roots and establish a revolution and take over the island. "You think I made the right decision?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "You know what I mean? Come back and, be right here and take over an island. Yeah, I think you made the right decision." And he said, "I run the politics, and my brother runs the military and the business, and together we own the island. What do you think of my costs? What do you think of the way I run things down here?" I said, "Well, yeah, I can understand. You got a pretty good deal, and you keep your costs, pretty low, and you give socialist benefits to your I was going to say employees." And he said, "Yeah, and we monitor how everyone's feeling through polls every week."
Now, did you negotiate these trade deals in English or in Spanish?
I negotiated in English, and there was a translator that would translate in Spanish and English. I could understand Spanish, so I understood what he was saying, but it was helpful to have the translation for the same reason that he wanted a translator. It was beneficial to think about what you needed to say after. And we went through, and it wasn't just, as I said, it wasn't just business. We started to talk about peace between the nations on a back channel basis.
How do you feel that experience changed your life? How did it impact you in business? How did it shape you?
I think it believed that always you have an opportunity to love your enemies. And you take a look at what Dr. Martin Luther King said about love your enemies. Bless them that curse you, love them that hate you, pray for them that despitefully use you. And understand this, that if you can sit down with a communist dictator and find common ground, you can sit down in any business situation and find common ground.
Wow. David, let's talk about the difference between a cartel mindset and a disruptive mindset.
And that's a good point, because a lot of people have a hard time understanding that. The first book is on disruption. Basically, you take a big category and a small, fast-growing niche, and you work to explode it. Your thinking is that way, where on the other side of the fence, all a cartel is just a market leader that works with other people to be the market leader. And that mindset is about how do we maintain what we have? You know, what can we do to have an overwhelming force to knock the disruptor out, or do whatever we can do to maintain our profits, cash flow, market share, buy out. And that's why I put the 12th principle in there. So whether or not you're a disruptor, you're a cartel leader or a market leader, you understand the leadership rules that govern, so you can learn when you're supposed to act like a market leader, how to behave, and also make sure that you don't kill any segments that may be growing that you may want to have opportunities in.
I was fascinated that you put that 12th principle in your new book. Let me ask you this. Who should read your books? Let's talk about that. Who should read your first book or your second book, or both of the books?
Any person that's interested, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a market leader, you can learn. You can learn from leadership if you're interested in changing a little bit of your life. You know, in the last year and a half, I've lost 50 pounds. Well, that's from understanding leadership and understanding taking control of your own actions. It has nothing to do with growing cash flow and entrepreneurship and business. So there are a lot of people can learn from this, and I welcome you please to go to davidradlo.com and take a look at both these books.
What would you say, before you go, and we're going to drop a link down below for your website, but I wanted to address what's going on, and it's relevant right now in our country, the supply chain disruption. Can you talk a little bit about that from your expertise, please?
Yeah, well, with COVID-19, you've had a supply chain disruption, and also we have a situation where the market is sustainably changing. So you're seeing a change in having alternative proteins. You're also cage-free. And when you're changing to cage-free, it takes all sorts of machinery and all sorts of stuff in order to get where it needs to be. We just happen to be, there's 2 chapters in the book about how industry has been fighting with other industry groups, and it has to do with organized battles. And it's important there to understand that, because supply chain and being able to feed everyone's family with low-cost protein, such as eggs and other stuff, is fundamental. And you'll see how the supply chain is disrupted by different interest groups just fighting unnecessarily. So it's an interesting read in 2 of those chapters.
Speaking of chapters, what is your next chapter, David? What are you working on right now?
Well, I'm delighted to be helping others grow, and in addition to Ben Carson's, which I'm very happy, I'm very excited about that. I'm excited about that minority wealth project in terms
Long overdue.
Absolutely. You're going to finance the opportunity to disrupt the sector and put the cash into those of underserved communities. I'm also, of course, excited, like I was before, and the Tufts group, both in entrepreneurship and also the innovation group in food. And I'm quite excited about Chris Nowinski, who's disrupting concussions,
right?
Concussion Legacy Foundation. And I also continue to do the work at the Finke Viaje Foundation as a board member. So I really encourage people, not just myself, that I really am involved in this. I encourage people to put their time, talents, money, and finance behind projects that are meaningful to change the world for better.
David Radlo, best-selling author, two times, baby, industry disruptor, and a friend of our show. Thank you so much for coming by. Will you come back and see me again?
I would love to. Thanks, TC, for this opportunity.
Thank you, David. David, we are at the end of another show, and what a show we had, but we never end our show without putting on our shades and doing our prosperity dance. Did you bring your shades?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right, I'm going to give you the honors to tell Big Mike, what time is it?
Big Mike, hit my music.
Hey everybody, TC Bradley, host of God Made Millionaire TV, and I was thinking the other day of how my life was profoundly impacted and changed for the better when I published my first book, Supernatural Success. Within 45 days of publishing that book, I signed a major TV deal to feature and promote my book on that TV show. After that, I published another book, got invited back to another TV show. If you're watching this video, listen. You've been given a God-given dream to publish a book. He's given you an assignment to do, and like me, you want to try to talk yourself out of it. I didn't talk myself out of it, and my life was profoundly changed. I want to help you publish your book. If you've been given a God-given dream, an assignment to publish your book, well, we have a publishing company designed specifically from A to Z to handle all of those details for you. All you need to do right now at this point is set an appointment up with our publishing company so that we can talk to you about bringing your book to the marketplace and your voice to the nations on our show, God Made Millionaire TV, as a published author.